Hooking into a new social circle is something we kind of just take for granted when we're young, right? But as we get older, a lot of us hit this wall and realize that making true, deep friends as an adult is incredibly challenging. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely demystify the art of making friends, and we're using a scientifically backed playbook to do it. Whether you are navigating a totally new social landscape, or maybe you've just moved into a shared space, like a continuous care retirement community, a CCRC, where you're suddenly surrounded by peers, we are going to show you exactly how to turn those casual acquaintances and neighbors into lifelong confidants. Let's get into it. So, first things first, why is it literally so hard to make friends as an adult? Well, if you've ever felt that sudden pang of adult loneliness, I want to validate that for you right now. Research actually shows that when we leave environments like college, the built-in social buffers that used to protect us from isolation are completely wiped away. We lose those effortless, highly structured environments that just naturally breed friendships. Suddenly, the effort to find social support rests entirely on our own shoulders. And here's the kicker. Even in highly social environments later in life, like a CCRC, just being physically surrounded by people doesn't automatically cure loneliness. But the good news? We can solve this together by understanding the actual mechanics of how friendships form. So we're going to map out the entire life cycle of a friendship today. We'll cover 1. The proximity foundation. 2. Breaking the ice. 3. Deepening the bond. 4. The trust test. 5. Workplace friendships. And finally, 6. Maintaining the bond. Starting off with Section 1, the proximity foundation. This is all about how our physical environments and our repeated routines actually shape our initial interactions. Okay, the proximity principle. This was famously documented in MIT housing units, but it is incredibly relevant to shared residential communities today, like a CCRC. It essentially proves that opportunity equals proximity. We just naturally tend to form relationships with the people who are physically close to us. And this is supercharged by something called the mere exposure effect, which basically means the more we see people, the more we inherently like them. It's really that simple. So if you want to make friends, you absolutely have to harness this. Don't just go to a one-off community happy hour and call it a day. You need to enlist in a repeated social event. Join a multi-week language course or commit to a regular weekly group in your community center. Give proximity a chance to work its magic. Right, so once you're actually in that shared space, friendship researcher William Rollins identifies the very first 2 steps of friendship development. Step 1 is role-limited interaction. This is where you're really just relying on superficial social roles, communicating based on standard scripts. You know the drill, you're just the neighbor down the hall or the person at the next table over. Are you stuck at step 1, just relying on those superficial scripts? Because as you repeatedly share space, the ultimate goal is to transition to step 2, friendly relations. This is where you finally move beyond those initial roles and start discovering shared interests to see if there's, real potential to keep getting to know each other. Moving right along to Section 2, breaking the ice. How exactly do we move beyond just being familiar faces in the exact same dining hall? Well, the crucial turning point here is overcoming what psychologists call covert avoidance. We all do this. It's when you show up physically to a social event, but you mentally totally disengage. Like you're sitting in the common lounge, but you're just staring down at your phone. Or you're only talking to the one single person you already know. You gotta put the phone away, seriously. And once you do, you need to use a really cool concept called repotting. Just like a plant needs a new, bigger pot to grow, a friendship needs a new context to deepen. You have to vary the setting. If you only ever chat with someone in the dining hall, repop that acquaintance by asking them to go for a walk. Take the interaction entirely outside of the original context. To help with this, author Gretchen Rubin outlines some highly actionable, striving behaviors to force that transition from functional acquaintance to casual friend. Plan that outside activity we just talked about. Or ask for a small favor. Surprisingly, that actually builds trust. Try to start an inside joke to build a feeling of exclusivity and intimacy. Or simply send a text completely unrelated to how you met. Maybe something funny about how terrible the Tuesday meatloaf was. These small, deliberate actions signal to the other person that you are invested in way more than just passing the time. Which brings us to Section 3, deepening the bond. As we make this initial effort, the friendship requires a totally new currency to keep growing. Once you make that first move, you essentially enter a cyclical engine made up of 3 things: making an effort, integrating lives, and sharing about life. You start creating rituals together, you introduce them to your broader family when they come to visit, and you begin swapping personal histories. This cycle right here is the motor that truly drives intimacy forward. And a massive, massive part of that engine is the social penetration theory. This theory proposes that as relationships develop, communication absolutely has to move from shallow, superficial topics to much more personal and intimate subjects. When you intentionally share private information, you are literally constructing the friendship. It completely changes the dynamic and enables new friends to form robust bonds of trust. It moves you right into what William Rawlins calls a nascent friendship, which is that beautiful moment where you stop calling them my neighbor and proudly start calling them my friend. Next up, Section 4, the trust test. Because sharing your heart is really only half the equation here. How the other person actually receives it is the ultimate test. Have you ever shared some really good news with someone and they just kind of brush past it? It hurts, right? Well, enter positive psychologist Shelley Gable's framework, Active Constructive Responding, or ACR. Research reveals a massive secret here. How we respond to a friend's good news is actually a way better predictor of long-term relationship success than how we respond to their bad news. Crazy, right? ACR involves actively acknowledging another person's joy, validating it, and then asking questions to discover more about its source. So imagine your friend just won a local bridge tournament they've been practicing weeks for. A passive or destructive response is dismissive, like, oh wow, cool, and then immediately changing the subject. That totally squashes their joy and creates an emotional away state. But an active constructive response, that is the equivalent of an emotional high five. You say, you totally deserve this. How do you feel? How are we going to celebrate? This creates a powerful positive toward emotional state, deepening their confidence and letting that person know they are truly seen and valued by you. All right, Section 5, Workplace Friendships. Now, I know it says workplace, but the exact same social psychology applies perfectly to highly structured shared spaces, like residential communities, local boards, or neighborhood committees. Shared space friendships are really a double-edged sword. On the positive side, they foster a massive sense of belonging, psychological safety, and innovation. But on the dark side, they can breed exclusionary behaviors, favoritism, and cronyism. When friendships cross over into community work and structured play, they can easily create in-groups. If people start to feel like decisions about community rules or social invitations for off-site trips are based on closeness rather than fairness, well, it can lead to toxic gossip and assign an outsider status to anyone who doesn't fit the mold. To navigate this landmine, we have to clearly understand the difference between friendship and networking. While there is definitely overlap, the primary motives are completely different. Friendship is vested in social gain, mutual well-being, and shared values. It's fundamentally about personal connection. Networking, by contrast, is transactional and objective. Now, in a community setting, networking might just mean collaborating to get a new community garden approved rather than getting a corporate promotion. But conflating personal favors with those community goals, that is exactly what leads to the perception of toxic cronyism. So, how do we actually manage boundaries in a shared environment? You have to be deliberate. Use direct or indirect conversational refocusing, meaning gently steer personal gossip back to the task at hand. Maintain openness about your limits. Actively avoid exclusionary in-groups by being an entry point for others. For example, if you host a lunch in the dining hall, invite the whole table, not just your two favorites. And mind the boss-friend gap, or in a CCRC context, the committee chair-friend gap, to ensure everyone is treated equitably. Doing this protects both your social capital and your integrity. Finally, Section 6, Maintaining the Bond. We've reached the summit of the friendship life cycle. To actually reach William Rawlins' stabilized friendship stage, you can't just put the relationship on autopilot and expect it to survive. Best friends must continually renegotiate the relationship as life inevitably changes. Maybe someone's health needs change, or they move to a completely different wing of the community. You have to adapt your rituals together. Furthermore, you have to explicitly value each other. This means directly, out loud, communicating to your friend exactly how much they mean to you. This mutual attachment and the assumption of continuity is what allows a friendship to survive across physical distances and all those inevitable life transitions. There is a quote from John Joseph Powell that just perfectly captures the profound emotional payoff of doing all this hard work. He says, "It is an absolute human certainty that no one can know his own beauty or perceive a sense of his own worth until it has been reflected back to him in the mirror of another loving, caring human being." Wow, that is the true power of an adult friendship. It is literally the mirror that reflects our best selves back to us. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder today. Think about your current daily routines. Who is one acquaintance you can reach out to and repot today? Take the proximity principle into your own hands. Put down the phone, ask for that small favor, and invite them to step outside your usual context. You might just be one active, constructive response away from a lifelong confidant. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and good luck out there.